Lead time, process time, percentage complete and accurate. We addressed that obviously at the beginning as well in the first set of slides. I did not speak about roll first past yield. Okay, again, that's a wordy, lean terminology that basically says, how often do I score 100%? How often do I start with the call that comes in, and I make it all the way through the request channel to answering the customer at the end effectively the first time, without going what we call back upstream. Are there any CSRs in the room who work directly with producers? Yeah, a few CSRs that work directly with producers?
In the past, I worked on my own sales team.
You work on your own sales team. Okay, so does it occur that sometimes your producers do not provide all the information that's required? Right. So it's about grading their roll first pass yield. It's about saying, how many times did I receive a request from you that I was able to just move it and keep going downstream with it and keep through the process? Either enter it into a portal, send it to marketers in the office to be able to put it into either a policy management system or whatever the case may be. When did we, or did we have throughout the whole process all the information we needed to go through? Otherwise, it's considered an error or a defect, right? It's really like, sorry, your application's a defect and I can't actually move it through the process. You put the sunroof on the floor. That's not where it goes, okay? I can't finish the car when the sunroof's on the floor. All right, I'm going to show you a cute little video. Everybody see that okay? So that's the definition of somebody who's decided to become lean. It's worth seeing it again. This was at an airport when I was waiting for a flight. And I watched somebody washing windows. And normally, we would wash windows first with one hand. Then we would put the wet part, back in the bucket. And then we would get the squeegee and use the same hand and start the process again. How much faster is he doing it this way? And there's decent percentage complete and accurate. I agree. I don't think he's starting over very often. He might be ambidextrous. He might have a skill or a gift. Absolutely. But he had to start somewhere. He wasn't able to do it very well at the beginning, I'm sure. I'm sure he was leaving trails everywhere. And eventually he just got better and better and better at it to the point where he can probably wash a window twice as fast as anybody else can. And maybe he gets more breaks. I don't know. I didn't get that far in the conversation with him. But when people go, well, what is lean? What does it mean to be lean? I don't understand. What is it? That guy's lean. Okay, that guy's using the same amount of time to do something, or sorry, half the amount of time to do the same thing that someone else would do. So step three is documenting reality. Current state workflows. Identifying waste, or what the Japanese refer to as muda. We're going to also talk to you a little bit today about spending time in the gemba, or actually on the shop floor. I was in the boardroom, and I did all kinds of nice research in the boardroom with my group. We had a great time. We drank coffee. We had muffins. It was awesome. But we also need to actually get out on the floor and also watch the process on the floor. That's where we're truly going to learn a great deal more about what's going on in our renewal, new business, claims, cancellation, the process that we've decided to study. And we're going to be able to identify these famous non-value added steps. So this is a simple example, or a simplistic example, of a typical commercial new business workflow. We try to use the workflow to identify a series of information or a variety of information. Oh, I do have a pointer. Fancy. Can everybody see my pointer? Okay, so the PT, we talked about the PT. That's the process time, the time that it takes at each of the steps. Down at the bottom, I'm not very happy. I have a lead time of 1 day and a process time of 90 minutes. It's important to remember that lead time can also be, when was I able to get to it? You passed it down to me, but it doesn't mean I could start working on it right away. It might have taken me a day to get to it. I got a whole lot of other stuff already on my desk. Look around you. You might have sent me an email to say, hey, can you send this to market? Yeah, sure, I can send it to market, but not today. Maybe tomorrow, if I'm in. Or maybe the day after that. It depends if you sent me all the information or not. So that's how we slowly identify the areas that we feel could benefit from improvement. The zigzags for us, the crooked line, that's when information is submitted or passed along electronically. So if we're using technology, we're using real time, we're using systems to upload, download. I sent something from CompuQuote and I brought it from CompuQuote back into my BMS, and that's how I updated my BMS. We would do that with a zigzag to say it's done electronically. We'd want to look at, again, the percentage complete and accurate of that work to see how well it's actually functioning. The other thing we do, you'll see, this is actually a person, this little circle with the hands. And the 17, that's the number of people in the organization who do that step. So when you have a large organization and you have a lot of people that do a step, you're going to need to multiply whatever wastes you find or non-value added steps by the number of people who do that every day. And that's where you're going to start to do your calculations and arrive at your math equations. Has anybody ever taken an opportunity to build workflows within their brokerage firm? Current state workflows. Awesome. Congratulations. They don't have to look like this. This is just an example of how we do them. But at the end of the day, it's just a great way to what we call, it's kind of like a bird's eye view. It's the 10,000 foot eye view, and you see how information moves. The other thing that we have, whoops, went too far. The other thing we have a producer, we have a client service broker, we have a marketing person. We call these swimming lanes. It allows us to identify the roles of the individual people who do the different jobs in the organization and how information is passed off. That's where we can also nab our famous percentage complete and accurate. When I pass it off, half the time it's right, half the time it's wrong, half the time it has everything I need, half the time it doesn't have everything I need. Oh, so what does it do when you don't have everything you need? Slows me down by about 15 minutes, slows me down by about 20 minutes. Then we multiply it by the number of transactions and so on and so forth to see whether it makes sense to make an improvement. So why do we spend time in the Gemba? Why do we also get out of the boardroom and go onto the floor to see what's going on in the organization? It's where lost people, confused people, maybe irritated people, and other people are the perfectionists too. And we see the perfectionists were on the floor. I might say, I need you to wash the kitchen floor. Some people might spit shine it, right? Okay, it's all washed. Other people use traditional methods, right? They'll get the bucket, they'll get the soap, and other people will get down on their hands and knees with a toothbrush. You see that when you're on the shop floor. Like, I see that you've done a renewal, but you spent the morning on it. Yeah, I had to check every market. I had to make sure every single field in the entire BMS was accurate. And I also had to read the past 3 years of correspondence to feel comfortable with what was going on. Okay, I think you're washing the floor with a toothbrush here, and you might be giving it a little bit more attention that's needed. And do we have people like that in our organization? A few, right? And other people are spit shiners. Renew as is. Renew as is. It's fine, it's great, nothing changed. Everything's the same as last year. Did you ever talk to the customer? I don't need to. It's fine, renew it. Right? Those are our spit shiners. We see them on the floor. We also see their ability to use the BMS. We see their ability to use other tools like Excel, Word, Outlook. Their communication skills. Sometimes we get to see the famous emails that go back and forth 9 times between them and an underwriter when you're like, wow, that should have been 2 emails. 1 to the underwriter, 1 back from the underwriter. That went back and forth 9 times because you have a difficult time communicating what you want to say or ask for in your emails. And that's really slowing us down. How do they send information to other people? How do they receive information? My famous car coming down the line, somebody decided to use a hammer and nails when I actually need it done with a screwdriver or with screws. We also get to sit with some of the producers too and see what's going on with them, how they're managing their time. I'm not bugging producers. Who are the producers in the office? Is there anybody here? Oh boy. It reveals information that's not quantifiable. We talked about collecting data. We talked about getting statistics. Sometimes we need data that doesn't come from statistics. We get to see who follows current processes and who doesn't follow current processes. Who's decided they've gone rogue and they're not applying any of the changes or modifications that we've asked them to make for years, right? You have never followed any of the things we've asked you to do? No. I always just do it my way. I nod in the meeting, but then I go back to doing it my way. Okay. You've been covering this up all these years. Yeah. So who's adhering to process? Who's adhering to coding? Training needs. We're going to look into the specific 7 deadly wastes that we spoke about earlier, but we feel one of the greatest benefits to the organization is identifying training needs that exist amongst the people to bring them to another level. So we were mentioning before that Muda is the Japanese term for waste. Lean thinking suggests that in order to actually create capacity or to have more time, we're trying to eliminate this from the process. The next slide that I'm going to show everybody is not huge. I apologize. It wasn't obvious for me to shrink it onto a slide. If you would like after the presentation, feel free to give me your business cards and I will send you the full version. You can also go on to our website where we wrote an ebook alongside with PolicyWorks on something called the 7 deadly wastes. How to identify it in the office, where it comes from, and so on and so forth. So it's an easy way to pull it off our website as well. So here are the 7 deadly wastes. So when we see the bad lead times or the poor process times or the ineffective complete and accurates and the WIP and the so on and so forth, it's stemming from one of these 7 things, or maybe multiple. Maybe there's 2 of them causing them or 3 of them causing the same one. But there's usually one of them at the root of it. Waiting. Waiting basically means that I would like something to get done, but I'm waiting on somebody to be able to complete it. Or a producer provided me with information for a new risk, but I can't actually submit it to market and they're on the road for the next 2 days. So I need to wait for them to come back so that I can speak to them about it. Or the boss is the only one who can make the decision before we can go forward and the boss is in Florida for a week. Happens. Waiting is something that slows down the operation and affects, obviously, the relationship with our customer in one way or another. We want to try and eliminate waiting as much as we can. Overprocessing. Overprocessing is, well, I had to enter it into CompuQuote. I had to enter it into TAM. I had to enter it into the portal. I also had to enter it into Excel. I then made up my own Word documents. And then I decided, why not go to the typewriter and create a pink slip? Because then I would have had a chance to do it all. And that is overprocessing. The customer's not feeling warm and fuzzy about having to do all of those steps. Wherever we have overprocessing in our workflows, we want to take it out. Errors. We've been speaking about errors the whole time. We don't need to get into errors any more than that. Complexity. It's too hard. I don't understand their portal. I have 9 different portals to try and understand. And they're all different kitchens, like we were saying. I have no idea where they keep their spices. And I look and look and look, and then I forget, because it's been a week or a month since I was here last. And it's difficult to be able to process something when it's too complicated. So I cannot do it quickly. Motion. The movement of people. Yeah, I get the document, but I got to print it up. Then I'm going to sign it. Then I got to go back and scan it. And then once I've scanned it, I'm going to get it as an email, and then I'm going to attach it to the client. So we got up once to print it, then we went back to our desk and we signed it, then we went back over to scan it again, and then we went back to our desk again to be able to attach it or send it on to somebody else. Every time that we get up and we move around looking for files, talking to people, I don't have all the information, I got to go see somebody about it. Somebody made a mistake, I'm going to get up and go and see the person about the mistake that they made. Every time we move around and there's motion, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do exercise, but I think we should do exercise on our free time and not feel that the workspace is where we should be doing our exercise. Transportation, flow of data and files, that's the electronic piece. That is the real-time piece, right? Am I able to reuse electronic information? Can I start with it once and reuse it, recycle it? I had it once from the customer, I then reused it for the portals, I then reused it for the download, I then reused it to be able to create all my binders, all my cover letters, all my pink slips, all my certificates, everything that I needed, I only put it in once. We want to be able to recycle and reuse information. When we can't, it's a waste. Underutilization of people. Either we have the wrong people that are working in a certain role, so that person is doing a job that they should not be doing, or that person requires or would benefit, from a great deal of additional training. So yes, they understand what their job is. Yes, they're able to do it at 60% capacity. Again, we're not machines, and our employees are not machines, but they do have a certain ability and a certain capacity. And that ability that they have and that capacity that they have is the way for them to be in a situation where they can either perform at 100% or perform at 50 or perform at 60%. Hints, tricks, tools, training, all of those things will, at the end of the day, benefit our employees. We even see to some extent, somebody did a fun sort of survey of brokers where they said, okay, how much money did we spend on technology in the last 5 years? And then the brokers were like, I spent like hundreds of thousands. I spent like this much. I spent like that much. New website, new servers. We're all virtual. We're all in the cloud. We're all doing this. We're all doing that. Okay. How much did we spend on employee training? Ooh, nobody wanted to put up their hand because the numbers weren't even close. And so, really, the technology is as good as the people using it. So if the people know how to use it to its full capacity, fantastic. If they don't, that's really how much that technology is working within the organization. So now we're into step 4. How do we actually roll the stuff out? We've had all of our meetings. Everybody's excited. We've plotted the new workflows. We know where we want to go. How do we actually bring the changes into the group? The question was brought up, and sorry, your first name is? Janice. The question was brought up with Janice, and our answer is really the 3. So we brainstorm on the possible options. So if 3 different people or 4 different people think this is how we should be doing renewals, this is how we should be doing endorsements, or a part of the process, then we try-storm. And try-storm basically means we're going to go back out into the group and into the Gemba, and we're going to try the various options and see what we run into in terms of, wow, this is really slick, or slicker than I thought. And this one ended up being a little bit more cumbersome than I thought. And sometimes it's even a combination of both. And then bring that statistical information back to the group and be able to come up with conclusions on how and which process makes the most sense. That way you're not picking one person's opinion over another. You're letting the actual process itself be the winner. And if you have to use a timer or a stopwatch, use a timer or a stopwatch and time the different processes. What happens too often is that managers and owners, who a lot of them have more of a strategic role within the organization, don't necessarily take all the pitfalls into consideration that the people who are down at ground level might be aware of. And if we go back to the manufacturing piece, if a manufacturer decides that they are going to redesign the plant floor, again, it's not likely the managers and the owners of that manufacturing plant who are getting involved in the redesign. They're bringing the employees in to do the redesign. If it's a time thing, and like you say, it's like, well, listen, I know how to do it. I do portals every day, or I know how to ask for an e-doc or request an e-doc, and I use the system enough. Like if you're in tune with what goes on, then it's absolutely no problem. But for some people who are somewhat disconnected, it's difficult for them to be able to make all the right decisions, so to speak, without the input. But the neat part is that after you've done it, you can still go into a try-storm phase where you say, okay, I've done it, and I have my own conclusions. I'd like you to try now as well on one or two of them, kind of thing that you may have some issues with or some points. Any other comments on that side? No? We're okay? Yes, yes.
Just a comment. I think the disconnect when you watch a show like Undercover Boss or Undercover Boss Canada.
Yeah.
There's your answer right there. Management thinks it's great, it's rosy, it's got ribbons on it, but when you put it out on the ground floor, it's not going to work all the time.
Right. And which part do we think the customer feels? The floor piece, right? The customer is directly on the floor piece. Yeah. It's the reality. Absolutely. It's a good way of saying it. That is what's going on. That is what's happening. Yeah, and we see it sometimes too in the sense where a producer or owner will say, I'd like you to help one of my friends, they would like a quote for new business. Sometimes we prioritize those people because it came from the boss, so the boss has a bit of a false illusion of, wow, thanks, you got that back to me in a half an hour. But they don't know that every other customer, it takes a day. It's just because the boss asked that it got done quickly, so that's sometimes where the boss's perspective comes from. I think it works great every time I ask for something and get it right away. We must be rocking. But people don't realize that everything gets put aside just for the boss, or the boss doesn't realize that. Yeah, but you're absolutely right. Okay, the next thing that we do is when we're documenting the reality, a lot of people, when they have brainstorms, we do something called Kaizen bursts. And Kaizen bursts are a way for us to shed some sunlight or some areas of improvement on the process itself. So I'll show you that in the next slide. So I'm back to my regular workflow that I had before. And in that regular workflow that I had before, it's important to identify the specific steps that you would like to work on. And organizations don't have to feel that they have to change absolutely every step in the process. Maybe some of them are already working really well. Maybe some of them are super effective. And you're like, no, that step's golden. It doesn't take any time at all. Don't touch it. But these steps we need to work on. The other thing too, and some of our brokers use different colored ones, they kind of say, well, listen, I'm going to use yellow for the ones that I'm able to change right away, and I'm going to use purple for the ones that I want to change down the road. I'm identifying them as a waste. I would like to eliminate them one day and put in some new changes. Perhaps technology's not there yet. A year or two ago, there may have been 1 or 2 insurance companies doing e-docs, right? So we may have said, yes, we want to go the way of e-docs, label it, but once we've gone the way of e-docs, after that, we're in a situation where we have to wait for the other carriers to come on board, so we just keep it for the future. Still a great idea. We're still going to get benefits. The customer's going to feel the benefits, but it's just possibly not right away. This is another way that we map out the steps as well. So this is called a pace chart. This is how we determine our priorities, our actions, our considerations, and perhaps some of the brilliant ideas that we got that we need to eliminate. So the need for the pace chart is to basically be able to show an organization exactly in a plotted way, yeah, we did our discovery, we sat in the Gemba, we sat in the boardroom, we all enjoyed the coffee and the donuts, and now we have a long list of changes that we want to bring forward to the organization. Those changes, it's really neat if we can plot them in terms of, geez, how easy or difficult would it be to actually implement that change? And what is the anticipated benefit anyways? Is it a really high benefit that we're going to get? Are we really going to get our bang for the buck? Or, you know what, we looked at it a little bit and it sounded like a great idea, but the benefit's not huge. And it's also difficult. So if it's difficult and it's low, then it's going to be in the red zone, which is likely a zone that you'll eventually eliminate and say, I'm not getting to those ones first. Your targets are, hey, this is easy to do, and there's a high anticipated benefit. We see often that a lot of it has to do with just house cleaning. Cleaning up the letters, cleaning up the activity codes, cleaning up old printers that are still in the list of printers that nobody even uses anymore, but the person has to scroll down 5 times to try and find the printer that they need, right? Clean that stuff up. It's quick, it's easy, and it all affects the process. So those are easy ones with decent anticipated benefits. If we decide that we're going to eDocs, maybe eDocs is somewhere in the middle. Maybe yes, high anticipated benefits, and it turns out maybe it's not that hard. But there's other ones which are, wow, I need a brand new system. I'm changing my entire broker management system from one to the other. Anticipated benefits high? Yes. Is it easy? No. Is it going to take a lot of time? Yes. So that one ends up being more of a yellow. Yeah, great, high anticipated benefit. However, it's pretty tricky. And we really got to decide whether we want to go ahead and do that. Okay, we're wrapping up. What does a little time get me? Here's a quiz. If I save everybody in the office, let's go with 1 employee. I'll start with 1. If I save 1 employee in the office 30 minutes a day, how much time am I saving that employee at the end of the year? What have they gained? 30 minutes a day. Any idea, first off, how much of an efficiency gain 30 minutes relates to? Is that like a 50% efficiency gain, a 10% efficiency gain, 20%? Pretty close. You're right. So we base a workday, an efficiency workday, on somewhere between 4.5 and 5 hours. So our employees are productive between 4.5 and 5 hours. So when you base it on 5 hours, it's somewhere around 10%. So if I'm able to save each employee 10% in efficiency a day, at the end of the year, drum roll, just over 22 days. 22 plus days. I bought them a month back, yes.
Why just 5 hours a day?
Great question. So we pay them for 7. What else is going on in the organization during those other 2 hours?
Social.
Chitty chat, a little bit of chitty chat, yeah. What else?
Social networking.
So, social networking, maybe they're surfing something. They could be in meetings, they could be in training, they could be learning a bunch of things. Other ones maybe go to body breaks more often than others, grab a coffee, have a chat while you're grabbing a coffee, all of those types of things.
Going the fax machines, photocopiers, scanners, back and forth.
The famous movement piece, right? Getting up and moving and moving and moving and moving. It's between 4.5 and 5 hours that an employee is productive in the workday. So you're basing your processes on that. If I have time at the end, I'll show you another interesting document of what happens when we multiply this by 20 employees, 30 employees, 40 employees. What happens if we save them an hour instead of just a half an hour? The number is massive. It's absolutely massive. And we often say, oh, if I just had the time to call my renewals, if I just had more time to do this, we'd be amazing. I think there is room for more time. Step 5. That's where we're going to document the new workflows. Quantify the results, control and audit, training. That's what's needed. We need an audit plan. A, it keeps employees honest to make sure that they know that we're true about the changes that we're putting forward. We are going to be doing this, and we are going to be auditing whether you are doing it or not. There is no more hammer and nail. You are using the screwdriver and the screws. Really? Yep, really. Because it helps the entire process. It's better for everyone along the chain. Somebody said to me once, they said, I do it so quickly when I do it by myself. I get it, but we don't go very far as a group when you do it quickly. So if we identify the areas that we want to bring benefits to our process, the next thing we can do is actually just simply throw it into an Excel sheet and plot it out. So the neat thing about this Excel sheet is it basically took all the steps, It looked at our current state lead times and process times, our future state lead times and process times, and it basically said, listen, today it takes us about 7 days in total to do that new piece of business and about 470 minutes. Down the road, we feel we can get it down to 4 days, and we think we can get it down to about 310 minutes. Okay, what are the benefits? What are the savings? What are we getting out of it? We want the customer to feel those benefits, and they will. How many times do we do a new business transaction? We do that about 500 times a year. Wow, what does that mean? Well, in terms of days, we've just saved the organization 242 days if we apply those changes. Yes, sir.
Do you actually track data of best practices for brokerages you guys work with? What the ideal CSR by line of business manages?
I would say we do it loosely, like we do have grids, but it's based on their roles that they play, right? So I can walk into an office and the CSR calls 70% of our renewals, and I can walk into an office and there's a CSR who doesn't look after renewals at all. And again, it's the same thing. Some do complementary portfolio completion in personal lines, like, yeah, well, if I have the home, I'm the one who has to do the auto. And other ones, it's like, nope, even if I have the home and the auto comes in, I still pass it off to the new business team. So it's really specific to the roles and responsibilities they have. Some handle claims, some don't handle claims. But based on those categories, yeah, then we do have grids and stuff like that that we evaluate to mean, like, if it's an A-type role that the CSR plays, this is how many policies. A B-type role, this is how many policies. And we do it that way. And we update it based on the statistics that we get from our current brokers and based on the roles that those brokers play within the organization. Exactly.
Would that be something that could be shared or accessible? Or?
It's not easily accessible. It's kind of part of our intellectual property that we only share with our customers. But I mean, give me your card at the end and we can talk about it and stuff like that and see how we can make it available to you. So yeah, so at the end of the day, this is just a way, again, to bring it back to management or bring it back to ownership to say the reason why we're making these changes or the benefits behind these changes is really quantifiable. We can see how to do it. In conclusion, the reoccurring theme for us when we visit a brokerage firm, it's again how projects get started, but they unfortunately don't get an opportunity to be finished. And how people feel when they're not involved in the project. We'll come in and we'll say, hey, we heard you started a project. Don't ask me, I wasn't involved. They didn't ask me. Ooh, we can feel the cool breeze come across, right? Okay, tell me how you really feel, right? So when people are not involved in a project, it does affect the organization more than they may think. Is it more management to get everybody involved? Yeah, it requires more management getting everybody involved. But the buy-in is greater, the long-term benefits are greater, and this is all about continuous improvement, right? When we do exercise, are we good after 3 months? Do we do it like a blitz? 3 months, I'm good? Good for life after that? No, it doesn't work that way. Process improvement is the exact same thing. We don't do a blitz for 3 months and then assume we're good for life. It is a mantra of continuous improvement that says, I started, I made it all the way to the end of my first project, and now we're starting the next one. Communicate effectively to the team. Understand the difference between strategic roles and tactical roles. Upper management ownership, stay on the strategy side. Let your employees do the tactical piece. Set your goals and objectives, start small, and keep going until the benefits are felt. It's like exercise. If it's too painful, there's likely something you're doing wrong. Okay? The communication piece, we already spoke about that in the first half. I included it in these slides in case we didn't have time. And that's it. We're all done. So thank you very much. You guys were a great audience.